Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi and a very warm welcome to all participants. Thank you for joining today's CME webinar organized by Unit HIV, STI and Hepatitis C, Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri Johor. My name is Dr. Nurul and I'm honored to be your moderator for today's session. Before we begin today's session, I would like to take a moment to go through a few housekeeping reminders. Firstly, kindly ensure that your microphone remains muted during the presentation to minimize background noise. Participants are encouraged to turn on their cameras where appropriate to promote a more engaging learning environment. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to post them in the chat box at any time. We also kindly ask everyone to communicate in a professional and respectful manner throughout the session. Regarding the Q&A session, questions may be submitted via the chat box during the presentation, which will be compiled to be addressed during the Q&A session. If you would like to ask a question verbally, please use the raise hand function and you'll be invited to unmute your microphone when appropriate. As for attendance and e-certificate, a QR code for attendance registration will be shared towards the end of the webinar. Kindly ensure that you complete the attendance form with the required information for record purposes. An e-cert for participation will be issued to participants who have successfully completed the attendance registration. And please note that today's session may be recorded for documentation and educational purposes. Kindly please do not share the webinar link with individuals outside this session without prior permission from the organizing committee. And any inappropriate behavior or disruption may result in removal from the webinar. Thank you so much for your cooperation and understanding. Now, let us proceed with today's CME titled Adolescent Sexual Health and STI, a Client-Centered Approach, a highly relevant topic in primary care, public health and STI services, which I believe will provide valuable practical insights for our daily practice. I would like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Rosna binti Muhammad Tahir, currently a FMS at Klinik Kesihatan Maharani Muar, where she also served as the head of clinic. She obtained her MBBS from University Malaya in 2008, followed by a Master of Medicine in Family Medicine from University Putra Malaysia in 2018. Beyond her clinical responsibilities, Dr. Rosna is actively involved in medical education as a lecturer at the University of Cyberjaya, a gazetteer and examiner for family medicine specialist training, and a trainer for the MIN-FM program. She also contributes to several national initiatives, including the National TB Task Force for Children, and the development of the Clinical Practice Guideline for SLE. In addition to her academic and clinical work, Dr. Rosna has participated in research involving Hep C, TB, maternal health, and community health programs, reflecting her strong commitment to both patient care and public health. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Dr. Rosna to deliver today's lecture. Dr. Rosna, the floor is yours.
A very good morning and Assalamualaikum. Thank you to Unit HIV STI, HIV STI HMC Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri Johor for inviting me to talk about a little bit lah about adolescent sexual education and also sexual transmitted infection. Okay, so my name is Rosnah binti Muhammad Tahir, currently in Klinik Kesihatan Maharani since 2019. Okay. So, and I also has been involved in portfolio of HIV, STI and Hep C ever since 2019 in Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri Johor. Okay, so let's move on to my presentation today. So, my slides are most in English, but during my presentation, I will do mix lah. Okay, so we will talk in English and also in Bahasa Melayu. So this is my disclaimer. I don't have any subspecialty in adolescent health or even in communicable disease of HIV, STI, and Hep C. Nevertheless, this is my area of interest in my services. And also, I have not a very wide experience in this, but maybe this minimal experience that I have that I can share with you guys. Okay. So the learning objective for today, we will learn about adolescents. Okay, so a little bit on adolescents. Okay, the counseling for adolescent and how we can educate them about sexual disease. Okay, so a little bit on sexual transmitted infection in adolescent, and a little bit of a gray area about the Child Act and also Gilead Law, and how we can actually advocate prevention of STI among teenagers or adolescents. So who is adolescent? Okay, so I have two teenagers at home, okay, aged 12 and 15. Okay, so both of them are giving me headache sometimes and can make me turn into mak kau hijau lah at times. Okay, so WHO defined adolescent between the age of 10 to 19. Okay, so early adolescent will be those yang age 10 to 14 years old. Middle adolescent are from age 15 to 17 years old, and also late adolescent from the age of 18 to 19 years old. So if we see their development, okay, so they are also different in their development according to the stages of adolescent. Okay, so if we see at early adolescent, okay, selalunya most of the time this is where they start to have their growth, their secondary sexual characteristic. Okay, at this time also they start to change. Okay, from very bubbly, very cheerful children suddenly become very emotional. Okay, and sometimes they start to have stress or pressure to the parents or even to their peer. Okay, so and during early adolescent juga, most of the time they can start to have emerging of sexual feelings and sexual exploration. Okay, so for middle adolescent, okay, most of the time during this time, okay, they start to grow more of their secondary sexual characteristic. Okay, and at the age of 15 to 17 ni, most of the time they become taller. Okay, both of my teenagers at home tu, dua-dua pun dah nak grow taller than me dah. Okay, so other than that, they start to have experiments lah about sex, okay, about drugs, about their friends, and also they start to have sexual drive during this middle adolescent. At late adolescent, age 18 to 21 years old, most of the time during this time you can see that they have become more mature. Okay, they can make decision, they are more comfortable with their body image. Okay, and also they start to ask for validation about their feelings. Okay, and also they start to establish more of their sexual identity, sexual activity, and also their sexual activity. So for adolescent, okay, adalah time, maknanya transition period kan, from children to become adult, they are the adolescent ni. So during this time, they start to have their puberty. So what are the physical changes yang kita expect lah for girls? Okay, selalunya macam I cakap tadi, they start to have their growth spurt, okay, become taller. Okay, even my daughter who age 15 years old now memang taller than me. Okay, so they start to have shape in their body. They start to grow their breasts, okay, their hair, more hair at their armpit, more hair at their pubic area, okay, even their also sometimes they start to hair dekat head pun become more thicker lah, okay. So kalau we talk about teenagers, okay, the close to me is my daughter lah, and so most of the time I will try to ask her, do you grow your armpit yet? Okay, do you have hair at your pubic area? Okay, so dia dekat middle adolescent kan, so dia still rasa shy to tell me and all, but I will always say, okay, you can tell me because I'm a doctor kan, so and nevertheless I'm still your mother, so most of the time I will still try to ask about their development lah. Okay, so other than that, they start to sweat a lot. Okay, and that's the time when usually when they come back from school, kita akan cakap bau macam anak ayam lah, bau macam telur lah. Okay, because they start to have more sweat and they start to have body odor. Okay, so one of the thing also that can happen are hormonal changes, where they start to have acne, okay, sometimes the skin become oily or even dry. For girls, sometimes they can have discharge from vagina, which is usually thin, clear, and transparent. Okay, so actually this is a good discharge that can actually prevent them from getting infection. And during adolescent jugalah, okay, most of the time the girls akan start to have their periods. Okay, so how about boys? Okay, So for boys, they start to sama je macam girls, they start to grow taller, ada banyak hair. One of the thing that change is their voice, okay? The voice become deepen, okay? Because the vocal cord and the larynx start to grow lah. As for my son, okay, who age 12 years old, okay, baru je early this year, he started to pecah suara lah, okay? So, and up to now, sometimes I and my husband feel like it's very annoying lah to hear his deepened voice, because we used to have this bubbly and cheerful teenage at home lah. Okay, so now we have two emotional teenagers at home. Okay, so otherwise they start to have changes in their sweating, skin, same as girls. Okay, one of the thing in for their sexual characteristic, they start to have erection when they have a sexual thoughts or feelings. And also during this time also they can have wet dreams. Okay, so during puberty the body start to produce semen lah for boys. Okay, and then this semen can leak out at night, which may be caused them because of their dreams of sexual nature. Okay, so how about their emotion now? Macam-macam kan? Okay, so most of the time during this time, they change from very cheerful, from very bubbly, okay? They start to have mood swing, okay? They become more sensitive to others. Sometimes they can become confused, okay, what they want, confused in making decision, okay? They start to have feeling of self-conscious about their appearance. And one of the things that they start to confuse is their sexual feelings and also their sexual identity. Okay, so during this time lah, sometimes you will have they have their doubt about their gender, they have their thought about their sexual preference. Okay, and also they start to have pressure from peer and also changes in relationship with others. Okay, so adolescent juga adalah group yang start to curious about sex, their attraction to other sex. Okay, so and also they become dia punya interest lah to know about sex tu more during adolescent. Okay, so we cannot deny the fact that adolescent are always exposed and always involved in social issue lah. So in your daily practice, sometimes satu atau dua time in a week or in a day, mungkin akan ada few social issue that related to adolescent. Okay, so one of it is their pressure to be perfect. Okay, so then they come lah daripada pressure to start to develop stress lah, start to develop depression lah, anxiety. Okay, among adolescent. And another thing that quite worrying now, okay, so kita pun dah ada campaign anti-bully is bullying lah. So it's either physical bully, emotional bullying, or even nowadays we have cyber bully. Okay, things that also related to social issue in teenagers is the sexual health issue. Okay, so I think maybe the audience today pun ada from a lot from primary care setting. Okay, so we have all this teenage pregnancy. And we also have nowadays sexual transmitted infection among adolescent, or even HIV infection among adolescent. Okay, so another thing that we can see now is the social media pressure lah. Okay, so they try to be as perfect as they want in the social media, that which lead to them to have suicide or even depression or even anxiety. And we can see also that adolescent sometimes can involve in usage of illicit drug, and also tobacco and also vaping. So we move on a little bit about problems that can occur in adolescent. Okay, so according to National Health Mobility Survey in 2022, which they tengok most about adolescent health. Okay, so they reported about 154,000 adolescent in Malaysia reported of having sex. Quite a big number lah actually. Okay, so 75% of them reported having sex recently, and around 33% of them had sex before the age of 14 years old. So kalau kita nak tengok berapa ramai yang currently have sex, there are about 5.7% of them are sexually active. and more in males. Okay, in between states, we can see Kelantan has the highest rate of sexual activity among adolescents, and the lowest rate is in Selangor. Okay, how about awareness regarding HIV? There is very low awareness about HIV knowledge among adolescents, where they reported only 1.3 of Malaysian adolescents have adequate, comprehensive and knowledge about HIV. And among the 150,000 of adolescents yang ever have sex ni, 88% of them don't have any contraception usage, and also 88% of them are not using condom. Okay, so and about knowledge also, around 80% of them do not know that consistent condom use can actually reduce HIV risk, and also 86% of them did not know that sticking to one uninfected partner can reduce transmission. So this is quite worrying to me, as I also have teenagers at home, and also I'm dealing with teenage in my day-to-day working hours lah. Okay. So how about usage of alcohol, tobacco and drugs? Okay, so about 7% of adolescent are current drinkers, and they started around 65% of them started before the age of 14 years old. Okay, and 1 in 5, okay, kalau ada 5 orang teenagers, 1 in 5 were ever drinkers lah. Okay, so how about tobacco usage? We can see that there are reduction number of cigarette usage among adolescents from 2017 to 2022. But because there are increasing number of vape usage in among adolescents, okay, around 14%, 15% lah of adolescents are currently using vape, okay, and most of them are male. So, and we cannot deny the fact that there are still adolescents are still high on drug use. Okay, around 60,000 of adolescents in Malaysia is currently use drugs. Okay, and 1% of them actually taking amphetamine or methamphetamine. So 3 in 4 of adolescent ever drug use, which initiated before the age of 14 years old. Okay, so quite a young age to start to involve in alcohol, tobacco or even drugs. So what we have in primary care? So in primary care lah, in klinik kesihatan kita ada klinik adolescent ataupun klinik mesra remaja. Okay, so there are a few things lah. So this is the topic that I will talk about today in terms of client approach for patient, adolescent patient with sexual transmitted infection. Okay, so when you have, katalah kita ada one adolescent coming to the clinic, or even if you see sometimes kita buat aktiviti luar, you know, you have your school team going to school, okay, to do screening for teenagers. Okay, there are few clinical barriers lah that kita kena identify, and kita kena try to reduce the clinical barriers. Okay, so when you have adolescent coming to the clinic or coming for consultation, one of the thing that kita kena establish are confidentiality. Okay, so kita kena assure them that what they say are stay in the room. Okay, nevertheless, okay, we are bound to the verbal confidential contract. Okay, where the confidentiality is strictly maintained, except in 3 clinical situation lah, where the teen safety or safety of others is at risk. Contohnya, kalau adolescent is at risk to harm themselves, adolescent poses a danger to others, or even the adolescent is being harmed or abused by someone else. So most of the time, kalau ada, you know, you are dealing with teenagers, okay, so most of the time kita akan try to make them comfortable, bring them to a room, okay, without any other doctors or any other patient inside there. Okay, some of the clinic in klinik kesihatan, they have room for remaja. Okay, so where the room usually located kadang-kadang ke atas lah, kadang in different room lah. Okay, so to make sure that okay, kita establish confidentiality with the teenager. Okay, so usually kita akan cakap, okay, whatever that we are going to say today, okay, whatever that you're going to say to me, we try to keep it as confidential as we can. Tetapi jika kita dapati, okay, if we notice that this matter bring harm to you, bring harm to others, or others are going to harm you, we are going to breach the confidentiality. Okay. So another one, this will need experience, okay, is to build rapport lah, okay. Nak build rapport with teenagers ni, sometimes ada yang easy, sometimes ada yang susah. Why we need to build a rapport? Because we want to reduce the authority gap. At the same time, we want them to open up to us, okay. So because sometimes if they don't open up to us, we don't know what is their problem, and from there we cannot help the adolescent or the teenager lah, okay. Another one will be empathy. Okay, so after kita dah ada confidentiality, kita dah build a good rapport with the teenage, okay. So then we want to build empathy with them, okay. Sebab remaja ni, okay, they always need validation, okay. They always want us to listen to them, okay. So we are not going to judge them, okay. So we are not here to judge them. We are trying to help them. So that's why we need to show our empathy to them, okay. Sebagai contoh lah, okay, sometimes when my daughter, you know, sometimes dia tell about her school things and all kan, and sometimes kadang-kadang kita macam dengar tak dengar and all, and she will start to say like this to me, are you listening to me? Macam tak dengar je, okay. So because they need validation from us, they want us to listen, they want us to give comment on whatever that happened to them, okay. So with a good confidentiality, a good rapport, and very good empathy, we can make the teenage or the adolescent start to trust, okay. So when they start to trust us, a healthcare provider, okay, so from there they start to open up. From there, it will be easy for us to manage their problem lah, okay. So it's either sexual problem ke, it's either some infection ke, or either other things lah, even if a case of violence or case of bullying, okay. So once they start to open up, they start to trust us, okay. So it's easy for us to start to give advice, okay, advocate on prevention, or even if they started treatment, okay, so we can make them compliance to the treatment. Okay, so another things, okay, that we can use to tackle adolescent lah is the ever popular HEEADSS, okay. So ever since I started my primary care career in 2010, benda ni memang dah lama lah, all these HEEADSS ni lah hits, okay. So during that time, maybe I'm not use this much of hate sebab sometimes you macam too scripted. I feel it's so too scripted lah all this, but nowadays, when I have I'm dealing with teenagers, okay. So most of the time I will use these hits template lah, okay, to actually assess them, okay, to build rapport to them, and from here you can assess their health status lah, okay. So first H will be home, okay. So kita build rapport, then kita start to ask lah, okay, where do they live? Okay, so most of the time when I have a teenage or even sometimes children kan, I start to ask, okay, duduk mana, rumah kat mana, okay, who are you staying with, okay, siapa ada dekat rumah tu, okay, are you staying with your mother only, with your parents, or ada orang lain lah dalam rumah. Sometimes they have grandparents, they have cousins together in their house, okay. So let's say sometimes, okay, in my clinic we have those vocational student which is still in adolescent age, and they are not staying in the house, okay, they're staying in the hostel, or sometimes they're staying in their rumah sewa lah, okay. So we need to ask, okay, who are they staying with, okay. So if they're staying in hostel, how many of them in the hostel, okay. So we want to assess their living situation, their safety at home, and also their relationship lah with the parents or with their guardians or even with their friends in either hostel or rumah sewa, okay. Another E, the next E will be education and employment, okay. if they're still schooling, so usually I will start to ask where is their school, okay? So how long have they been schooling there? So are you enjoying your school? Any friends at school? And then baru I can start to ask how about their achievement and also their attendance to school, okay? So then the next will be question like what you want to be in the future, okay? So any problem at school so far, okay? Some teenage they start to open up, some they start to cerita little bit lah, but later on they start to open up when kita know how to tackle them about school, okay? And we cannot deny the fact that ada juga teenagers atau adolescent yang dah start working, okay? So then you want to ask where are they working, okay? So any what are their job scope is, what is their salary, okay? And any stress in the workplace. So another E will be eating and exercise. Okay, so just to share that teenage ni still ada some, you know, they have some issue or they still have some rasa macam tak insecure lah with their body image, okay? So they can have a problem with their body image or nutrition, okay? Sometimes they can have some drastic weight change. They can have some body image issue and also eating patterns lah. So just a few last year lah, okay, I have a case that satu budak lelaki lah, okay, teenage boy that was brought by the mother because sudden weight loss, and when we further investigate and we further ask, actually this child didn't get to join the school football club, okay, because he was overweight and obese during that time. So because of that, he started trying to lose weight lah. So started to eat less, and after that, they start to vomit out every time he has his meal. Okay, so this has been prolonged until he has very bad epigastric pain lah, that brought the mother to brought the child to the clinic lah, brought the teenage to the clinic, and we admit the patient to the hospital. And later on, he was diagnosed with bulimia nervosa lah. Okay, so although kalau kita baca evidence banyak bulimia nervosa ni among girls, but this case actually is an eye-opening to me lah. Okay, so bulimia nervosa ni can still happen to male, okay, because he very desperate to lose weight to make sure that he can actually join the football club. Okay. So another next A will be the activities. Okay, so dia macam overlapping lah with school tadi. So you ask about their friends, okay, any problem with their friends, what they want, are they spending their free time with their friends, how about their social media and habits on their hobbies, okay. So D will be drugs and alcohol. Okay, so okay, casually ask, are they smoking? Okay, are they using vape? Okay, so if they ever involved in using illicit drug, okay, and also any traditional or synthetic drug use lah. Okay, sometimes they want to be pretty lah, okay, nak kulit glass glowing lah, nak kulit macam orang Korea lah, and also they start to take all this over the counter medication. Okay. Next will be sexuality, but this one usually I will use the sexual history, the 6P in sexual history, which I talk about it later, okay, after this. And another one will be suicide. Another S will be suicide or depression lah. Okay, so we have our Woolly question, we have our PHQ9 screening question about anxiety and also depression. So most of the time kalau kita ada remaja, we try to screen them for depression, try to screen them for anxiety. Okay, so if let's say they are positive to depression symptom, and also you want to assess them on any risk to suicide. Okay, so the last S will be safety. Okay, so kita nak pastikan lah, okay, so are they at risk of any environmental risk ke, any physical violence, okay, are they safe at home, are they safe at school, okay. So as an example lah, okay, yesterday one of the medical officer told me lah about the case that she handled in the school, okay. So she actually went to the school for school checkup lah, so screening for remaja, and they noticed that one of these girl actually mentioned to her that how can she run away from home. Okay, so when further questioning and further examination noted ada banyak marks lah, memang ada physical violence that has been ongoing at home, and even this girl actually try to get help from school, but it was hard lah, I think, for the school because parents are always there. So at last, this my medical officer actually brought this child to OSCC to settle up the case lah. Okay, and I think the child is still in the hospital for protection. Okay, so kita kena always have this feelings lah. Okay, sometimes are we dealing with teenagers yang not safe in their home or not safe in their school. So tadi kan another S is sexual. Okay, so how about sexual history lah? So usually we follow these 6 P's. Okay, so first usually is partner. Okay, most of the time I start to ask, okay, do you have girlfriend, do you have boyfriend? Okay, so are you in relationship? Okay, so if they said yes, then you want to ask how many partner that you have. Okay, so another question will be, what is the gender of your partner? Okay, so you cannot assume that if a male teenage, the partner will be female lah. Okay, like we used to be. Okay, so nowadays you need to ask what is the gender of the partner. Okay, and then you want to ask how many partner, is it casual or is it serious relationship? Okay, and then another question will be, are you sexually active with your partner? Okay. Maybe last time is quite taboo to us because we assume that most of teenagers are not sexually active, but in this kind of world with limit ni kan, so you need to ask this. Okay, so if they say yes, okay, so we must not be judgmental. Okay, we must go on with the another P will be the practice. Okay, so if they said they are sexually active, so you want to ask what is their usual practice. Okay, so are they practicing vaginal sex or anal sex or even oral sex? Okay, so when was the last sexual intercourse? So who was the last partner that they have sex with? Okay, so if let's say how frequent they have sex in a week or even in a month. Okay, and then if let's say they're practicing anal sex, you want to ask also, further question will be regarding insertive or receptive activity lah. Okay, and then the next P will be protection from STI. Okay, so usually kita akan tanya, are you using condom? Are you on any barrier method? Okay, so if they don't use, you want to know why they are not using. Okay, sometimes they will say, tak ada duit nak beli. Okay, sometimes they will say it's lesser, or even sometimes they will say that they don't know that they need to wear condom. Okay, so the fourth P will be past history of sexual transmitted infection. Okay, so usually kita open-ended question first. Have you ever been diagnosed with sexual transmitted infection? Okay, sometimes they cannot remember. Sometimes they didn't even know that they have been diagnosed with STI before this. So usually kita akan tanya, have you been treated? Pernah receive any macam IM Benzathine Penicillin ke? Pernah receive any IM Rocephin ke? So usually tanya, pernah dapat jab ke anything from clinic or anything because of you having some problem with macam urethral discharge ke vaginal discharge. So another question will be their partner also has been treated with STI previously. The fifth P will be pregnancy plans. Okay, are they on contraceptive methods? Are they planning, if they plan to get married or they plan to get babies? Okay, so you need to ask this. And also the last P will be pleasure lah. Okay, so most of the time the question will be, we want to assess, are they using chemical to for their chemsex, or are they also, how about their pleasure lah, and also their gender crisis or gender dysphoria in this last P. So when you have high risk behavior adolescent, okay, it's either you got it from saringan remaja or sometimes they come with symptom of STI. Okay, so most of the time they will be seen by our doctors. Okay, so then you want to assess on the age lah. Okay, berapa umur dia. Okay, so if less than 16 years old, it considered as statutory rape. Okay, so this kind of case kita akan refer to OSCC and you need to have consent from either their parents, guardian or even from pelindung. Okay, so if let's say the age is 16 to 19 years old and they come with STI symptom, okay, so actually they need to tell their parents, okay, dan mendapat persetujuan remaja itulah that we need to tell your parents regarding this for you to get treatment. Okay, so this thing need to be notified and we need to do contact tracing. In terms of any sexual violence, okay, most of the time we need to refer to OSCC also for this kind of case. Okay, so once you get the consent, okay, so kita akan do the test and also treat accordingly. So this one is contoh carta pengendalian kes dan kes berisiko tinggi lah for HIV or STI dalam kalangan remaja di klinik kesihatan ataupun klinik desa lah. Okay. Okay, so we move on about sexual transmitted infection. Okay, so pada tahun 2024, we have our Malaysian Guideline Management of STI, the 5th edition. Okay, from this guideline, they mention lah, okay, there are increasing cases of syphilis and gonorrhea among young age. Okay, where males are higher than females. Okay, so from this, what they want is actually they want to increase awareness about HIV and STI in young population, so that they can have access to information and tools. So they know how to reduce the risk. Okay, they know that sexual activity can cause HIV, can cause STI, and even pregnancy. Okay, so that they can know how to make healthy decision, they can get treatment and care if needed. Okay, so adolescent juga kita nak they know the consequences of STI. Okay, so the HIV acquisition, the mother to child transmission of STI, the HPV infection that can cause cervical cancer or even PID. So what they target is actually to increase awareness, increase information or education about sex among youngsters, among adolescents about these matters. Okay. So how about Malaysian initiative? Okay, so there are few lah that mentioned. So one of it is the school-based sexual reproductive health. Okay, to better understanding about safe sex and their intended they also want to reduce unintended pregnancy and also mitigate sexual transmitted infection among adolescent. Okay, and school-based sexual reproductive health ni, okay, so when I actually look at my daughter punya school syllabus, okay, she started to learn about HIV, she started to learn about gonorrhea, about syphilis in syllabus of pendidikan kesihatan, and she started to ask me lah, okay, what is this disease, how it can happen, which is for me is good because it increase awareness among them, okay, and it knows that, okay, with this kind of activity, what they can get. Okay, so that's why this is another initiative lah, okay, to increase awareness, to increase sexual education among our adolescent. Okay, we also have healthy program without AIDS for youth, which is our popular ProStar. Okay, Dr. Nasrullah is one of the men that really like also ProStar. Okay, so in Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri Johor, we have ongoing ProStar program in different district. Okay, so during my time masa I punya school days, okay, I also joined ProStar, but during that time I think they want to advocate HIV that can transmit it from drugs. Okay, but nowadays with the rebranded to ProStar 2.0, they also include awareness about HIV, STI, and also stigma and discrimination issue. Okay, so in National Adolescent Health Plan Action 2021-2030, okay, what they aim is to optimum the health of adolescent, okay, there where it can reduce the risk behavior and social reproductive health, such as teen pregnancy, unsafe abortion, sexual transmitted infection, HIV, AIDS, and also smoking. So, in klinik mesra remaja, we have klinik mesra remaja lah in primary care. Okay, so I think every clinic ada klinik remaja. Is either how established is and how they are, how efficient is their clinic je lah, different dia. Okay, so but nevertheless in klinik mesra remaja, we have one of the scope perkhidmatan kesihatan is perkhidmatan kesihatan sexual and reproductive. So is either we are managing sexual infection, or even we are trying to prevent sexual infection among teenagers or among our adolescent. And this is very popular, our BSSK. Okay, so saringan status kesihatan remaja. If we see this form, okay, which is a self-administered questionnaire that we give to remaja, to our teenage, okay, one of the section in the form, okay, there ada yang section F tu, about kesihatan sexual and reproductive, okay, where we actually ask them about any sexual transmitted infection symptoms. Contoh, sebagai contoh, okay, any urethral or vaginal discharge, any rashes around the genital area, okay, and any pain or dysuria, okay, and also we also assess on their habit, okay, if they ever watch porn or read about porn, okay, about their masturbation, okay, so are they having sexual drive to berlainan jantina or same gender or different genders, opposite gender, okay, are they having any girlfriend or boyfriend, teman istimewa, okay, so another number 6 will be adakah saya pernah melakukan hubungan seks, okay. So then the further question will be berapa pasangan, okay, so is either same sex or some either same sex or different sex in sexual intercourse, okay. So in this question also they assess on the usage of condom during sexual activity, and also the contraception if they are sexually active. So even in our Malaysian guideline, okay, 2024, okay, these are the thing that sometimes can overlook lah, okay. So kita perlulah, actually we need to ask our adolescent regarding this, okay, if they have ever have urethral discharge, any dysuria, any genital skin problem, any testicular pain or swelling, any ejaculatory problem, okay. So any perianal or anal symptom, because nowadays we cannot deny the fact that ada je teenagers yang practicing anal sex, okay. So in female, usually we need to ask about any vaginal discharge, okay, unusual, okay, how about the smell, the color of the vaginal discharge, any vulvar or skin problem, any abdominal or lower abdominal pain, or any unusual vaginal bleeding. From the guideline also, okay, the new thing ataupun what we move forward now is POCT, which is our point of care testing. Is a diagnostic shift lah in primary care, where we can actually do point of care testing to diagnose sexually transmitted infection. What we have now is our rapid test for HIV, for TPPA, anti-HCV, and also Hep B as antigen. Some center also have NAAT for urine and also swab for chlamydia and gonorrhea. So for in terms of treatment, okay, in teenagers, okay, so one of the thing that we can use is our modified syndromic approach, where it is a relevant, a fast and reliable standard of care. We use a clinical flowchart for consultation and also management of STI based on their complaints lah, sama ada urethral discharge ke, any rashes ke, any anal warts, okay. And then the antimicrobial therapy that given is actually covered the majority of pathogen presumed responsible for that syndrome. So other point of view that we need to take from in terms of managing sexual transmitted infection is window period. Okay, so what is window period? So window period is the length of time it takes for the test to detect an infection following transmission lah. So ada different tests, different time dia boleh detect the transmission. Okay, so for example macam HIV antigen atau our rapid test, it take the window period will be 4 weeks and above. Okay, so how about syphilis? It can take up to 12 weeks. So if the person is a known contact of an infection and is within the window period, so treatment should be considered. So kita akan treat juga a contact. Okay, and also and if let's say kita test and the negative and the patient kita know in window period, kita must offer retesting appropriately. Another point of view that we need to tackle is partner notification. Okay, so why we need to find contact tracing, find the partner, because we want to interrupt the transmission. We want to prevent the potential reinfection and prevent complication. Okay, so how we get the partner? Okay, is either from patient referral sendiri ataupun provider referral. Evidence have shown that successful partner notification ni more bila dia from patient referral. Maknanya patient refer sendiri dia punya partner to healthcare provider lah. So that will be more successful in terms of notification. Okay, so this is such a gray area or something that I am not really has a good information about this, but I will talk a little bit about Child Act and also Gilead Law lah. Okay, so what is Child Act 2001? It's actually define a child as anyone under the age of 18 lah. Okay, so why we have Child Act ni? Sebab to protect children from abuse and neglect. Okay, so tapi with this Child Act, kita still bound to unconditional treatment and also mandatory reporting. Maknanya no matter what it is, you still need to treat the child and still need to report if you think that the child, you think the child need protection from abuse and also neglect. Nevertheless, there are one thing that okay lah, I always read about this, but I don't know how far that we are practicing it in Malaysia. Okay, which is our Gilead Law lah. Okay, it's from UK. Okay, so what they said about Gilead Law is actually minor achieve a legal capacity to consent to medical treatment. Okay, where they can sufficiently understand and mature enough to comprehend to treatment, where age becomes secondary to cognitive maturity and understanding. Okay, so for example lah, okay, sometimes you have yang memang age around 18, okay, ataupun 17 turn to 18, okay, so and they come with some sexual transmitted infection. Okay, so one of the thing is you want to consider how mature are they to actually boleh menerima rawatan. Okay, they understand about their problem, are they going to follow whatever advice that you're giving lah. Okay, so sometimes there come the Gilead Law. Okay, so like I say, it's a case to case basis and a very gray area lah in managing this kind of case. Okay, so what's next? Okay, we want to reduce the risk reduction lah. Okay, so it will be our ever popular A, B, C and D. So we want to advocate our adolescent to abstinence lah. That's the best. Okay, so when you don't have any sexual exposure, you don't have any sexual intercourse, either vaginal, anal or oral, so it will reduce the risk of infection and they won't get pregnant also from abstinence lah. Okay, so B will be our behavioral changes. If let's say they are sexually active, okay, so we advocate them to stick to one partner. Okay, tidak bertukar-tukar pasangan. Okay, if ever they have or they are known to it or they are at risk to it, so we also advise them to come for screening for testing. Okay, so C will be our condom, contraception and circumcision. Okay, so to advocate them the use of condom. Okay, so and also when we do, sometimes kan kita ada pergi school and all, and sometimes we actually can actually teach them lah on how to wear condom, not to actually promoting for sex, but usually ada je yang kita pernah tanya, okay, why you are not using condom when you do sex, because actually they did not know how to wear condom. Okay, so another one will be contraception. Okay, so are they legal to get contraception? Are they need to be on contraception? And for hygiene purposes and all is circumcision lah. Okay, so D will be drugs. Okay, which is our PrEP. Okay, so but PrEP in Malaysia still more than 18 years old. Okay, so about PrEP. Okay, so if they need post-exposure prophylaxis, or if they're even infected with HIV or even sexual transmitted infection for their treatment, and also vaccination. So that's the end of my topic. Okay, I don't know how much that I able to share. But here my reference lah. Okay, so I've been for the past 2 weeks I've been reading on this BPKK guideline, a lot of guideline in terms of adolescents. Okay, we have the garis panduan for masalah sosial remaja. We have even garis panduan how to tackle remaja. We have the HITS, engaging the adolescent modules. Even we have guideline on mental problem in remaja. So maybe if you guys need more answer or more info, you can actually review our BPKK Remaja website. Okay, so I also read about our management of sexual transmitted infection. And barulah buka lah National Health and Mobility Survey 2022 lah, where we got our adolescent health survey in 2022. Would like to share sikit lah our semalam we have our roster program. Okay, so where actually is one of initiative lah in terms of sexual education among teenagers, and also where we want to increase awareness about sex, and also we want to reduce one of the way to reduce transmission of HIV lah. So let me see if I can share it. So a small program, okay, so where they learn about sexual characteristic, okay, they learn about stigma and discrimination, and they are taught also about HIV, and we also add on sexual transmitted infection in the drama. So we had fun because all the teenagers are very supportive and giving their cooperation to us. Okay. So with that, I will end my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rosna, for the insightful presentation. We will now move on to the Q&A session. So the first question is actually in the Saringan Status Kesihatan Remaja, BSSK, we actually ask adolescents if they have ever engaged in membaca or menonton bahan-bahan luca. So when an adolescent checks ear to this question, what are the immediate clinical pathway available under the Klinik Mesra Remaja to manage compulsive consumption? How do we as providers offer behavioral or psychological support without causing the teenager to withdraw due to cultural shame or stigma?
Soalan. Wow, powernya.
Soalan.
Okay, so okay lah, if kalau kita tengok dalam BSSK tu kan, most of the time kalau dia jawab apa-apa yang ya tu means that kita kena do some intervention lah. Okay, so to do intervention for us is always to assess first lah. Okay, so assessment kita akan panggil the teenage kan, okay, the remaja untuk datang, dan kita kena assess balik lah. Okay, so sama ada sometimes dia just saja je cakap ya tapi tak ada pun. Okay, so kita amalkanlah all the CRET, the VCC, the HITS and all for the assessment, and later on if let's say kita rasa memang ada some addiction problem ke, memang ada some problem with it, so we have our counsellor, okay, we can refer them to our counsellor. And another one will be if let's say, okay lah, sometimes we have to know our limit also, okay, like I say, sometimes in my clinic will consider that this is an addiction problem or towards pornography. I hope it answer lah the question.
Harap menjawab soalan TVP Karil dari Hospital Suruhanjaya. Another question, Dr. Rosna. One of the most striking takeaways from the NHMS 2022 data, 33% of adolescents who have ever had sex did so before the age of 14, and we are seeing this parallel trend with other high-risk behavior, which have the same age threshold of around age of 14 as well. So it seems like the thought of this reproduction and sexual health will be introduced a little too late. A significant portion of our youth are already engaging in risk behavior before the age of 14. So given that, when do you believe it is the most suitable way of introduction? When do you believe is the most suitable timing and the way to introduce the sexual education, especially in our society, right, where sex education is traditionally treated as an uncomfortable topic? And what is the best approach to equip and support parents as healthcare professionals so that they can comfortably navigate this conversation with their children?
Okay, dah macam politician punya question lah tu, okay. So, kalau kita tengok kan, when I see my children punya syllabus lah, okay, school syllabus, okay, actually at the age of darjah 5 and darjah 4 tu, they already start to learn about sexual reproductive health lah. So in sexual reproductive health tu, actually memang ada in a scientific way lah punya bacaan tu memang ada lah bagi tahu apa itu hubungan seksual, okay. Cuma for me it is a normal sex lah kalau dalam buku tu, means our vaginal sex lah, normal sex kan, okay. So but they are not exposed to it all this anal sex, oral sex lah, which is I understand is quite taboo to be told. But usually for me education on this can be started at home lah actually, okay. So I am not the best person to talk about this matter actually, when and where. Maybe I need to read more on if there's any evidence based on which age usually the best for us to actually educate our teenage regarding sexual activity. But for me when I have two teenage at home, okay, age 12 and 15, okay, but most of the time when we talk about sexual activity or sexual intercourse ni kan, so most of the time I will just open up with them, okay. So sebagai contoh lah, okay, so my boy who is now 12 years old, okay, when he was 11 he did ask me, okay, macam how babies are made lah kan, memang apa tu orang kata common question lah, selalu tanya. So I no longer like kalau last time lah masa our age kita tanya tu memang kena pandang cerkah dengan mak lah kan, okay, what a question are you asking kan kalau mak-mak kita dulu. But for this I will say, okay, dalam buku sains ada cerita kan, so ada pasal hubungan seksual, ada pasal lelaki ada penis, perempuan ada vagina, okay. So when you do sex means you masukkan you punya faraj ke dalam you punya penis ke dalam faraj, okay. So there come the conception and it is called as sexual activity lah. So I think by the time of age 11 tu dia macam faham tak faham. But now at the age of 12 and my daughter at the age of 15, they already understood dah, okay, that this is sexual activity, okay. So what can happen, because kalau kita tengok syllabus dekat school tu, dia memang by the increase of age tu, they start to have more towards macam now that, like a few days ago, my daughter show me the pendidikan kesihatan kan punya buku that told them about HIV. And even dia kata dia tengok dekat school, memang nowadays they already started to show video lah regarding HIV, how HIV transmitted, and even my daughter start to know lah about anal sex, oral sex that can actually lead to STI and also HIV. So to answer the question, when is the best age to for me, I need to find more evidence on it. But for me, the most matter is actually for us to be open up lah, and education actually start at home lah. So maybe parents can start to open up, okay, telling tak adalah bahasa mestilah kena berlapik juga, but then telling them the science behind sexual intercourse lah, so they understand. And if ever they understand, then after that kita akan advocate them lah, okay, what will happen if you do this, what you can get, okay, how this can lead to pregnancy, can lead to sexual infection. Okay, so I think I hope it answer question about a little bit political and sci-fi punya question tu lah. Okay.
Okay, another question that terus now. So from NHMS data 2022, it shows that 88% of sexually active Malaysian adolescents are not using any form of birth control, right? But the thing is, when an adolescent under 18 walks into a clinic asking for contraception, right? So we are facing this legal grey area because Child Act 2001 saying that defining them as child, but Gilead law established that a minor can consent to their medical treatment if they possess the cognitive maturity to fully comprehend it. So what is the best approach from our side, a clinician, to respond when a minor requests for contraception?
So that's why I said very when I did the slide, okay, I was contemplating, okay, nak put ke tak put Gilead Law and Child Act lah, okay. But I think it's about time that we need to know about Child Act and we need to know about Gilead Law lah, okay. And for me, it's case to case basis, okay. So let's say memang we have lah, okay, those underage coming, okay, so we are still bound to the our law that we need to actually tell the parents lah, okay. It's hard, okay, through my limited experience pun, it was hard for me to convince a teenage lah, okay, to actually tell their parents or their guardian regarding this. But if we ever ada good rapport with them, they start to trust us, okay, so they start to open up to their parents also. So with the consent from the parents, okay, so in terms of nak pakai contraception or not to use or not to use contraception, so it based on consent from the parents lah. So sebagai one of example is I have a case of 16 years old lah before this diagnosis HIV. Okay, so when we want to start treatment, and we need to tell the parents, okay, because they're more than 16 already, so it's not considered as statutory rape lah kan. So it took us a long time to convince the teenage to actually open up to the parents, and at last we able to treat the boy lah, okay, with treatment after we get consent from the parents. So nevertheless, we are still bound to our Child Act 2001, but I when I dealing with the case, okay, I did go far and low lah, asking psychiatrists, child psychiatrists, asking even apa lawyer regarding this lah. So about Gilead Law ni, the very grey area, tapi kita nak apa tu, nak assess, nak assess the maturity pun is quite hard. Because we don't have any tools pun actually nak assess maturity of a adolescent kan. So That's why for me to be safe and all, we still need to actually get consent from the parents or the guardian lah. Okay. And if let's say it's hard, okay, so maybe we can ask help from the pelindung lah. Even the case that I'm dealing with was tu pun kita pun ada try to ask our pelindung lah to become the next of kin for this patient. So but in kita punya apa nama dia tu Hippocratic oath kan, kita do not do harm lah. So if we think that that will not give harm and give benefit, we should proceed lah. Itu jawapan saya lah.
Itu jawapannya. Okay. Terima kasih Dr. Rosna. We actually have another question here.
Aduh.
Oh, banyak soalan. Okay. Data shows that many Malaysian adolescents are experiencing early sexual debut. So from a practical standpoint, when an underage minor presents at a primary care clinic with acute sexual health risk, what is the standard protocol for notifying their guardians? So how do we successfully balance the legal obligation to inform parents with ethical need to preserve the patient's trust so they don't default on their medical treatment?
So that come the CRET lah. Okay, so confidentiality, rapport, empathy and trust. Okay, so after that, usually what usually okay lah. Like I say, I punya experience tak adalah banyak. Okay, but then I have dealt a few cases of underage with even pregnancy or even come with sexual transmitted infection symptom. Okay, so as we are bound to our law, okay, so memang kita akan make the child understand that they are still underage. They still need their parents to know about this matter. So then after they give consent, then we will ask them lah. Okay, so do you want to tell your parents by yourself, or you want us to help you in telling their parents about their problem lah? And most of the time, memang kita sebagai healthcare provider lah yang will help to tell the parents what is happening to the teenage lah atau the adolescent. Okay, and sometimes okay, mungkin ada case nanti akan ada tanya lah. Okay, if the case come alone or the case come with friends and all, so we need from my experience, kita pernah je sampai to the extent of we keep the teenage in the clinic until the parents come to the clinic lah, so that actually teenage ni kalau kita pandai handle them, kita make them trust that this issue need to be to get help from their parents, they will understand. Tu nak tak nak memang for me you have to follow the law jugalah.
Okay, Dr. Rosna, terima kasih. Ada soalan lagi Dr. Rosna? So we know from the data that peer pressure heavily dictates adolescent risk behavior, and the fear of social isolation is a massive hurdle in early and middle adolescent. So based on your clinical experience, what do you find is the most effective way to teach teenagers healthy refusal skills? How can we best advise our youth to confidently say no to sexual pressure from a partner or peer group while maintaining their emotional security and social circles?
High five tu question hari ni
High five, Mak.
Okay, so basically kan, I think what is lacking lah in our teenage is actually education about sex lah. Okay, so when I talk with kita punya friends and all kan, so actually what are lacking is they didn't know that sexual intercourse ni can lead to what? Okay, so one of it they know lah, sexual intercourse can lead to pregnancy. Okay, if they do vaginal sex, but they didn't know that anal sex is not a proper way of having sex lah. One of it, and anal sex also can actually lead to sexual infection or even vaginal sex or oral sex. They need to know that. Okay, so when they know about the consequences of um, having sexual intercourse or have multiple or random partners. Okay, so then there will be mature enough lah actually to say no to whatever that been asked lah. Okay, so like today I pun ada baca in Facebook lah. Okay, so one of experience lah where actually the teacher yang try to persuade for sexual intercourse and all, but then it started when if the teenage to start to follow. So that's why if they know what are the consequences of what can happen in sexual intercourse and all, so they need to they can if they know the consequences, they know lah that they need to say no to this kind of thing lah.
Invitation. Okay. Okay, final question, Dr. Rosna. This might be controversial. So while our local data captures baseline drug use and early sexual debut independently, globally we are actually seeing these two domains merge into a rising phenomenon called chemsex, where specific synthetic stimulants are used intentionally to facilitate or prolong sexual encounters. So actually, I believe we can, when we utilize the 6Ps framework, we can discover that their sexual practices are mainly dependent on the substance use. So in this kind of cases, right, because our risk reduction actually lists abstinence as the first line. But we know in this kind of cases, absolute abstinence from the either drugs or sex will be very difficult to enforce immediately. So how do primary care clinicians transition from an abstinence-only message to a more realistic life-saving harm reduction model for this kind of patients?
So ini in terms of chemsex ke, in terms of sexual ke, or
What
everything?
if basically in everything, what if we have like when we are doing the 6Ps, right, to a youth, right, then we can see that these two are actually relevant to each other and we actually notice that, oh, saya lagi, bila saya high yang lagi saya banyak buat this kind of sexual activities. So say if we are consulting this kind of patient, so how do we go about it? Because if we say abstinence first, it's likely to be unachievable. But we also, of course, we want to not sound it like as if we are encouraging them to a more risky behavior. So what do you think of how do we go about it?
Okay. So usually lah in my is either adult or teenage lah. Okay, so most of the time memang I akan advocate abstinence as the first line of any non-pharmacological management lah. Okay, in this kind of case. So but then after I cakap okay, tak melakukan abstinence is the best. Okay, but as a human nature lah. Okay, so sometimes we cannot help ourselves from not doing it lah. Okay, so then after that it comes the B and C lah. Okay, so if ever you are going to do sex and all, so please stick to one partner. Okay, make sure that your partner also been tested. Okay, you also been tested. Okay, and then you come the C lah for protection. Okay, so condom and all. So in terms of kata ada using of chem sex and all, so one is actually first will be always to assess lah, okay, how much are they using, what stimulant or what illicit drug that they're using, okay, and then if it is memang proven that they are using it and all, so we want to offer them help lah, okay, so to offer them help, okay, so I think we have a lot of FMS and also our psychiatry also nowadays are doing um, subspecialty in addiction. Okay, so we want to work together lah. Okay, so in terms of satu, how to tackle on this addiction problem or their usage of drugs, although sometimes not sampai until addiction, but then I think the best person to tackle this those yang memang ada subspecialty in addiction lah. So we work hand in hand lah. So with them in terms of this matter.
Okay, Dr. Rosna. Okay, so it seems like all questions are being already been answered. Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Rosna, for your thoughtful responses to the questions. And thank you to all participants for your active engagement and excellent questions throughout this session. I'm sure all of us have gained valuable knowledge and practical insight into providing client-centered care for adolescents, particularly in addressing sexual health concern and STI in our daily practice. On behalf of UNIT HIV, STI, and Hepatitis C, I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to Dr. Rosna for generously sharing her insight and valuable experiences with us today. And to all participants, thank you once again for joining us this afternoon. But before you leave, please remember to scan the attendance QR code and complete the attendance registration form. Those who have successfully completed registration will receive their e-cert of participation. And do follow us on our link tree, since all our slides and recording will be uploaded time to time to our link tree as well. We hope you found our today's session beneficial, and we look forward to welcoming you to our upcoming CME webinars, which will be dihebahkan kemudian. And with that, we conclude today's CME webinar. Thank you, stay safe, and have a wonderful day ahead. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.